AI, artificial intelligence. We're going to focus on that today. We've talked a fair bit about it, about what it can do, what it can't do, what it might be able to do in the future. Going to bring all that together. I've got an expert back with us. Andrew Grill is an AI expert and futurologist. He's here to answer your questions. The question, I suppose, is AI. What do you want to know?
John, good to be back.
Good to have you back on the programme. Let's just deal with some very basic, simple questions. What is the difference between AI and using a search engine like Internet Explorer or Google?
What a great question. So in the UK, probably last year, Google updated their search, so they now have an AI mode. So rather than giving you a bunch of blue links that you have to then go off and click, most times when you type a long query into Google now in the UK, it's going to come back with essentially the same as if you typed it into a ChatGPT or a Perplexity. So it's going to take all the knowledge it's found, it's going to give it back to you in a way that is actually useful rather than you going and clicking. So I've defaulted. I no longer click blue links. I ask a long, maybe 1-2 sentence question to Google, and it comes back with an answer as if I'd had a research assistant come and research it for me. So it saves my time. Mm-hmm. The challenge, though, is that rather than giving you 10 options, it might just give you one. So let's say, find a futurologist in London or in the West Country. I want to come up. In the old days, 10 of my competitors would come up. The challenge now for businesses is there may only be one response with an AI query.
Right, so let's use that as an example, Andrew. You could pay to be under the old Google model, and I'll use Google as the example, because there have been many iterations of search engines. I mentioned them this morning, like Yahoo and Ask Jeeves and Internet Explorer, and you've got Outlook now. But you could pay under the Google model to be at the top, because you could be sponsored. Can you pay to influence the answer of artificial intelligence, ChatGPT?
Not yet, but what OpenAI, who make ChatGPT, have said is they're going to start to monetize that. So if you have a free or a low-paid ChatGPT account, a bit like with Netflix, if you pay a little bit of money, you're going to get ads. They have committed that the ads will be independent of the search, so it won't be influencing that. They've said that. But there are now techniques, and again, small businesses should be aware of this, to actually help AI search engines make sure you come up number one. And I've been experimenting with this. Mm-hmm. Really what the difference is with AI engines, when you use it for search, are looking for answers to questions. So you want to answer the question, who's a really good speaker on AI? I think the answer is me. So I'm going to structure my website to answer those questions. Whereas before, what Google and other search engines are looking for are keywords. So speaker, futurist, those sorts of things. So it's a nuance. But again, anyone with a small business listing right now should be aware that more and more people are finding services through AI search. And that means you have to be able to have a web page for humans. Mm-hmm. And for AI engines.
So business is going to have to adapt how it puts itself out there for AI as well as how it puts itself out there for humans. This is SEO, isn't it? Search engine optimization. I can't believe I'm using this sort of language, but I've done a little bit of work on this in the last 24 hours. So search engine optimization is where you produce a web page or a BBC News website news article where those keywords would come up. If you're looking for what's going on in Iran, SEO would hopefully drag you towards trusted sources. This is going to be different for business then, isn't it? It's a different way of doing it.
It is, but it doesn't mean you stop doing SEO because you're still going to have people finding you through the search engines. But as I said, when you land on the page, a human's got to be able to read it, but also an AI engine is going to say, oh, that's a great answer to the question I've just been asked. I'm going to give that as my answer. So I've been experimenting. So, for example, there's a page where I talk about what I've done with you, and I have on that page for humans, has Andrew Grill appeared on the BBC? So a human's going to read that and go, oh, that's a good question. But an AI engine is going to say, oh, that answers my question. I'm going to serve that page up.
Right. So the difference between AI searching and an internet search is that you get a specific answer to your question. And at the moment, that answer is not influenced by advertising or money. How accurate is that answer? And I suppose the other way of looking at it is, where is it getting it from? Is it scraping the entire internet, or does it know?
Really good question, and the correct answer is we're still not quite sure. Now, Google actually has a bit of a head start.
Sorry. we're not sure where the answer's coming from.
Well, because,
that's quite disturbing, Andrew. Sorry, but it is.
I don't work for Google, so I don't know exactly how they work.
Yeah.
But where Google has a head start is because they've been crawling the internet for 20 years. They've built up a very smart way of indexing pages and looking at whether this page is a better answer to that page. So if you've got someone who is a brand new company who says, we're doing AI search, and they haven't built an index, that means the answer may not be as good. What it is doing is it's getting the answers from the open internet. But as I said, Google have a bit of a head start because they have already indexed and ranked and tested the quality of these pages. Having said that, there's still a lot of rubbish that gets through. The challenge, though, is if the AI answer gives you one option, the other 10 you'd normally see are not there, and that should be a concern for some businesses because they may miss out.
I asked ChatGPT to tell me what AI was. It gave me quite a succinct answer to that. It said it's the current front runner, of course, as Google is the sort of premium search engine. That could change. Ask the people who ran Ask Jeeves. Artificial intelligence is when computers are designed to perform tasks that normally require human intelligence. AI is software that can learn from information and improve at tasks without being directly programmed every step of the way. So that was the answer. At the bottom of it, it said, this may not be entirely accurate. Now, that I found, I asked it a question about itself and it even questions its own accuracy. Isn't that a little bit of a flaw in this whole thing at the moment, that the accuracy is really an issue?
Yes and no. So yes, you should always check your work, but really when you're searching on the internet, you've always got to check it because you go to a website and is that then a mirrored page, a doorway page to something else? That's always a good rule of thumb. But the thing is, when you search on the open internet, your level of quality is going to be lower. What we're seeing more and more companies do is do things inside the organisation. So I'm sure the BBC has some sort of AI tool to search for radio programs. You can go back years and years. Mm-hmm. Because the BBC have authored that content, because you know who produced it and who uploaded it, if you're doing it inside an organisation, you know the source of truth. So inside a library, inside an organisation, AI is going to be much, much more realistic. You should always check your work. So when you found something, the critical thinking is something that I have a bit of a bugbear about. I go into schools and talk about this. You need to teach children the art of critical thinking. You get the answer, but can you actually understand whether it's correct? Now, something I suggest everyone does, when they do a normal prompt into your AI engine of choice, add an extra line, and that line is and justify your answer. So the query you gave it before about what is AI, if you'd added and justify your answer, it would have worked a little bit harder. It would have shown its thinking. And you could have then said, well, that's the way I would have thought about this problem. So my critical thinking matches yours. I'm going to understand this more. So there are small things that users can do to qualify the answers before they click off and check the website.
I think that may be the golden moment so far if we use AI, add the line and justify your answer. We've talked to Andrew quite a bit over the last year or so about AI. Joe Lima with some of the questions, Andrew, for you. Joe, your first question.
All right.
Hang on.
There you go. First one from Debbie and Scott who've been in touch to say, how can you tell if something is fake or real nowadays, whether that's a picture or something written?
That's a really interesting question, Andrew, because there's a lot of stuff now out there that looks sort of, hang on a minute, is that real? Like there's an actress, isn't there? There's Tilly What's-Her-Face, who isn't really an actress at all. Andrew.
Oh, what a great question. So a couple of ways. There are a lot of plagiarism detectors, but there is some question over whether they're very accurate because AI can now disguise that. I would always look at the source. Where has it been posted? Who published it? Has someone claimed credit for it? In terms of the video and the visual stuff, that's getting harder and harder because AI clones are now a thing both in voice and video. So again, I would put it into, in fact, if you cut a screenshot and upload it to Google Images, you can do what's called a reverse image search and it will tell you where it might have seen it before. And if it's been in lots of places that are a little bit suspicious, I would probably doubt that. But again, don't believe everything you see. Stop, look, listen, and check where the source is.
Sounds like the Green Cross Code there you just gave us, with the late, great Dave Prowse as the Green Cross Code man. Next question, Joe. From
Joe, not me, in Southville, who says, regarding AI, which industries do you think are really at risk of AI taking over?
Think about industries, but also think about jobs and tasks. I liken your job to basically a slice of tasks. So look at which of those slices you could automate. So if your life is photocopying, that's probably something that can be replicated. But if you're doing open heart surgery, probably the other end of the scale. So it actually goes across industries, and look at where the tasks are that are quite repetitive and can be automated. I have a phrase that I coined a few weeks ago: focus on what you love and automate the rest. So look at the job you do today. Where could you actually automate some of this for good because you don't like doing it or it's repetitive? And what are the things you really love doing? And what are the things that you've trained for that you really want to do, to use, empathy and judgment and those sorts of things? So there is probably no one industry. Look at accountants, for example. They were a bit worried. I did a talk last year, but when I explained how they could automate some of their role and become smarter, they were quite relieved. So look at the tasks and look at the stuff you can automate.
I quite like the sound of that. I've just thought of about 3 things I could automate in my life, like that, if I could. The interesting thing is, and this is causation and correlation, Andrew Grill, that we have 16% of those aged 16 to 24 in the UK are now unemployed. That is the highest level in 11 years. We've got 700,000 university graduates who are out of work claiming benefits. And AI is being cited as to one of the reasons that that's happening, is that the entry-level jobs aren't there in the way they were before AI really took hold. What's your view?
I have a view on this, and it's changed a bit. So I think you're right. A lot of people are saying, oh, it's AI, that's why we're not bringing on early people in their career. However, companies like IBM, my former employer, have actually said, no, we're going to triple the intake because we think that AI can't do the best job. It doesn't have good judgment and empathy and those sorts of things. So I think what's going to happen is, and this is the challenge, when I learnt my craft, I learnt by watching someone else. I was on the job overseeing someone. If you don't have those entry-level jobs, how do you ever learn the craft? However, if you have entry-level jobs and these people are very skilled in AI and can use it to automate the tasks they don't want to do or can be automated, it might mean that they progress up the career ladder a bit faster because they get experience on the job, they're very adept with the tools, and they can actually perform in a far more experienced way, maybe earlier on in their career. So my advice to anyone listening that's a school leaver at university, and I'm going to say this, become more digitally curious.
Yeah.
Play with the tools, get very comfortable with them so that when you get into higher education or into the workforce, you're the expert and you can show your boss, hey boss, I should be progressed faster because I can actually help you automate all these tasks and do all the smarter things myself.
We've had a number of revolutions in human history, the agricultural revolution, the industrial revolution. If you go back perhaps 30 years, it would take a team of 20 Brummies to build a Morris Minor. That's all now done by robots. So we've already had a change in how things are made, and that is using technology and automation. Is this not actually a change that we're seeing now for white-collar jobs in the way that perhaps a generation ago we saw a change in manufacturing with automation?
You hit the nail on the head. It's a difference in the way we think. I talk about AI being a cognitive partner or a decision partner. It's not doing it for you. It's basically doing some of the heavy lifting. What AI does really well is things at speed and scale. If you and I had all the time in the world, we could research everything that's out there. We don't. So if we outsource this to AI and automate that, we become smarter and smarter. So I think what we're going to see is the building of knowledge is going to be hand in hand. Another phrase I like, that might be your other golden phrase, is rather than think of AI being artificial intelligence, think of it as augmented intelligence, human plus AI. When we think about it like that, when we become comfortable with the tech, we then see how it can work for us and help us make better decisions.
Joe, another question we've had from listeners.
Yeah, this from Dean and Yates. Are we really that ahead in technology? I can recall watching Back to the Future as a kid, and it predicted we'd be on hoverboards and flying cars by the year 2015, and we're not.
It's a good point, because I want my James Bond Thunderball jetpack, and I haven't got that either.
Well, if you look at what's coming out of China with the physical robots, we've now got robots that are looking and sounding and moving just like humans, and that's a real quantum shift. What's happened is in the last 3 or 4 years, we've had huge amounts of progress around AI. Money has been pumped into it. There's a whole other discussion about are we in a bubble, but what it means is that we've accelerated. I've been playing in this game for probably 35, nearly 40 years. I've never seen a technology accelerate so quickly in the last 3 years. I liken it to 10 years of innovation in 3. And so, yes, we don't have hoverboards. We probably don't need hoverboards. But what we're seeing, even every week, a few weeks ago, one of the AI tools, Claude, came out with a new iteration that basically really blew away a lot of the things happening in the legal profession, for example, with other websites and other tools. So it is happening very quickly. The challenge is keeping on top of it and understanding what it can do for you.
Got 2 more questions to put to you, Andrew, but on that very point, the pace of how this has happened is actually quite breathtaking. The fact that this is now everywhere and people are beginning to use it. You came up with that phrase that we should put in every single AI question we put into Claude or Google or ChatGPT and justify your answer. But the acceleration, perhaps with a lack of knowledge or understanding, is a bit of a concern, isn't it?
It is, but programs like yours are letting everyone know these little tips and tricks. And what I do, as you know, I go around the world explaining what AI can do. Yeah. Often I'll show someone something I think is really simple and they go, oh my goodness, I didn't know it can do that. And it really, when I leave the room, they go, Andrew, you gave us a little push that we needed. Everyone needs a bit of a push. They need to spend maybe half an hour a week playing with it, listening to some of the things we've spoken about. They'll have an aha moment and then they'll become more comfortable with it.
Okay, and on that subject of its sort of advance, you're a futurist as well. So this time next year, March of 2027, what do you think AI will be? I mean, is it possible to look to the future and think in 12 months, what would AI be able to do? You just talked about how it could change the legal profession. Where is its next big moment going to be?
The next big thing is what we call agentic AI or AI agent. So right now, if you have a ChatGPT or a Perplexity or a Claude subscription, they actually have a separate browser. And I use one called Comet that's linked with Perplexity. And the other day I wanted to set something up and I didn't know how to do it. So I basically gave it the task. Because I'm using their browser, I had some tabs open so I could see my email and sorts of things. I left it alone and it built basically a whole lot of things I need to build that I didn't have the skills to do. It did it for me. So I think what we're going to start to do, and you've seen Claude come out with a thing called Claude Computer, it takes over your computer. So big asterisk, don't open your bank account with the page open unless you want it to spend money for you. But we're going to see everyday tasks automated through the browser with just basically, we want to plan for our trip to Italy, do it for us. That's, I think, where we'll be with most people listening to this call this time next year.
And that's going to be you and me and the listeners surrendering, perhaps not surrendering, but using it as part of our everyday and allowing it to do that.
And feeling comfortable. That's where we'll be.
Yeah, that's the key thing. KCNM ask, will AI become a tool for government?
I wish it would. The challenge we have with governments around the world is they're as a short-termist because you have someone in for 4 or 5 years and the last year they're trying to save their job. Imagine if you could put every single decision the government's ever made into a huge AI system and then ask it, what should we do? Is universal credit a good idea? Is universal taxation a good idea? I think if governments allowed themselves to look introspectively and with all the data that they've produced over the years, we could have better decisions. But no one's prepared to do that yet. And also, because you're only in for a few years, why would I do that when this is something long term? So
huge leap,
government is a brilliant idea.
Huge political leap. Matt, last question, Matt. And Andrew, and I'm very grateful for your time this morning on BBC Radio Bristol. Matt says, and a lot of people are feeling this, I've heard horror stories about AI developing its own language to speak to other AI without human interaction. Should we be worried about feeding AI information, or is that just a ridiculous story?
Not a ridiculous story, because there are elements of that happening. Some of the stories that came out, it appeared to be that humans were actually sort of egging it on. But remember, AI systems learn from humans, and humans sometimes cheat, and we're naughty, and we do things that are not the right way to do things. So it's learning about human behaviour. What I'd be more worried about is how we're training them. Are we training them to be good citizens or cheeky citizens?
Fascinating answer. Andrew, thank you so much for your time once again with me on BBC Radio Bristol. Always illuminating when you're with us. I have a funny feeling you will be back fairly soon. But for now, Andrew Grill, AI expert and futurist, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, John.
Andrew there, we'll have him back.